Do not get energy and emotions confused together. They are not the same thing. Play the game with more energy and less emotion. So many times we get confused where we think the emotions and energy are the same, and they could not be more different. Welcome back to the podcast, Ballplayer's Evolution. This one's about being less emotional. And I'm just going to get right down to it. I told you guys earlier on, I just want to tell you the truth for this stuff. You do not want to play the game emotionally. And you're going to hear some things, maybe from different coaches, that urge you to play the game emotionally. But I'm here to tell you, from my experience, it could not be further from the truth. And emotions do not mean energy. They are two different things. I think we get these two things confused far too often, where we blend them together as if they're the same thing. Couple examples. You do something wrong in the game and you get all mad about it or pissed off about it, and you want to use that to fuel you for the next rep, which is awesome. That's energy. That's not emotions. Okay? You're having positive energy onto the field for your next rep. The other thing with that, right, to really just, when you look at it as a whole, throughout a whole season, when you play the game with emotions leading the way, more times than not, it is not going to work out in your favor. More times than not, you're going to find failure as opposed to success. And so I challenge everybody to play the game less emotionally. Play the game in a neutral state of mind. Not too high, not too low. And it applies both ways. You're a batter hitting a home run. You don't need to show the whole world that you hit a home run, right? You don't need to be talking about it or bragging about it. You don't need to take forever to jog around the bases, right? Because you're not doing that stuff when you strike out. And so don't get too high, don't get too low. The same thing when you strike out. Don't walk back to the dugout letting everyone know you struck out. Don't walk back with your head down and your bat dragging, chucking your helmet, right? Don't get emotional about it. Stay in a positive flow state of good energy and good emotions, right? Keep the energy high at all times and keep the emotions level. Energy high, emotions level. Here's a really good thought. If you can apply this, I promise it'll change the way you play the game. If you were to imagine you were a fan, you showed up to a game, and all you saw was a play had just ended, and all you see is a player walking back from home plate back to the dugout, and you don't know what happened, would you be able to determine what the result was of that play? Meaning, would you know if that player struck out or hit a home run? And the goal for you as a player is to not let anyone else know what just happened. And that's really like the ultimate test in my mind of playing the game with less emotion. And when you do that, I promise your ability to focus will get better. It will only get easier, right? There's less distractions. Emotions usually equal distractions, and distractions equal failure. Or you keep your emotions level, you keep your energy high. That's a recipe for success. And so think about that situation, right? You hit a home run and you get to home plate. Are you going to walk back from home plate to the dugout the same way if you hit a home run or you struck out? You should be, right? You should play the game level-headed, even keel the whole way. And I promise from experience, your focus levels will triple. And that was one thing that really helped me. I do think overall and throughout my career, I didn't play the game very emotionally. Part of it was my personality. That's just how I am. And so when that was something I could apply to my career as an athlete, right, just playing less emotional, it just made it a lot easier to perform. My focus was higher, my stress was lower, and I just try to be the same guy every time you show up on the field. Be the same guy. Whether you had 2-3 strikeouts or 2-3 home runs, be the same guy. Right? And that's something your coaches and teammates can really respect. If you're the same guy every time, that's respectable, in my opinion. And so you don't want to be the same guy and be a guy that's a distraction to the team and be the same guy every time. If that's the case, you gotta adjust and clean up your act at that point. But I think for most of us, when we're doing our job and we're doing the things that we know we're supposed to do, show up and be the same guy, because now you're a guy that your teammates can trust on it and you can be accountable for day in and day out. And when there's pressure situations now and you're the same guy, we can rely and we know what we're going to get. We know what we're going to get from you, and we know what we're going to get from each guy. And so let's take it back a second. Be less emotional and be more energized. They are not the same thing. Right? High energy leads to high performance. High energy leads to a high motor, leads to an aggressive playing style, which leads to success more times than not. Right? Play aggressively, play energized. But you've got to be able to draw a line down the middle and understand, when am I playing the game too emotionally versus just playing the game energized. And so apply that situation in the game of walking back to the dugout and a fan or the other team or other coach or your coach not knowing what the result was. Right? You carry yourself the same way regardless. You have the same body language regardless. After an error, after a strikeout, after a nice play, after a home run. Right? That fan that just showed up and caught the end of it can't tell. And for the players at a higher level, that's what scouts want to see. Just letting you know that is absolutely something a scout is going to look for. Because when they're trying to scout you to be on their team, they want to be able to tell the coach, hey, this is what you can expect from this guy. And so that leads to being a good teammate, being a good leader, being a player who can play a long time. And so that's a characteristic of a player who has a nice, long, healthy career. All right, I'm going to spin to a different topic for this one as well, but it is definitely related to what I just said there. And I don't want to take credit for this. I heard this from a different podcast. Guy's name was Alan Stein Jr. He had a really good story he told, or like just philosophy, I guess you could say. And he talks about sort of turning yourself into a GPS system. And I'll explain what he means here. I'm just going to explain to you of like how I filtered it in my own way of what I heard from this. But again, I think it's a really, really good one. And so when you have a destination, you have a GPS, you plug in your destination first of where you're going to go. You plug it into the system. And from there, all you're doing is you're following the roads to get there, one turn at a time. And so you start out, you move your vehicle, you're going down a road, and then you make a left turn. And then you make a right turn. And then you give more or less gas, and then maybe you hit the brake. And you're only focusing on what's in front of you for that 100, 200 feet of driving. You're only focusing on what's in front of you, right? You see a deer in front of you, you're slowing down and adjusting. You see the road start to bend left or right, you're moving your wheel with it, but that's all you're focusing on. And so if there's a series of 15 turns to get to your final destination, you're not thinking about turns 5, 6, 7, or 10, 11, 12. When you start out, you're only thinking about that first turn, that next turn to take. And the really important thing with this is when you make a wrong turn, you're just one turn away from getting back on track. That's the key. You've got to understand that. And you're not emotional about it either. And this is where this is going to tie into that previous topic. Right? You make a wrong turn, you're one turn away to get back on track, and you're not emotional about that wrong turn. Because when you get emotional about that one wrong turn, guess what's going to happen? Another wrong turn and another wrong turn after that. And so turn yourself into a GPS system in this perspective. And here's the other thing. When you make a wrong turn, and this is what this guy in this podcast was talking about, the GPS system doesn't get mad at you, right? The GPS system is only concerned about what is the next move to get to the final destination, right? It has a map, and it knows the routes, it knows the traffic, and which turns we're going to make to get to the final destination, right? Kind of like a maze. And life is a maze. So I want to leave you with those final 3 thoughts to finish here. Number 1, be less emotional. Number 2, apply the body language test, which is what we talked about. If you hit a home run or you struck out, the way you're handling yourself on the field, the way you're walking back to the dugout, would somebody in the stands be able to tell what you did just by reading your body language? And the third one, use that GPS analogy. You're a GPS system just making turns, and you're only focused on the one turn in front of you. And if you make a wrong turn, you're not mad, and the GPS system isn't mad at you either. You're just focused on what's your next turn you need to make to get back on track.